Right, well, welcome aboard. Welcome. Today, we're going to look at how to correctly cultivate a field so it's ready for your seeds to arrive and be planted. Now, hopefully you've done a better job than harvesting than me. It was kind of rushed to prepare for this. However, we're going to have a look at each individual step that we need to do and what we need to do depending on what we're going to grow. And we're going to use precision farming as well with this one, so it's going to be a little bit different from a previous one. So first of all, we've got the section in the bottom right-hand corner saying owned by myself. It's 1.5 hurt acres. The land area is 2.47 hurt acres, so it's less than half of this is an actual field. And then we've got the crop type, which was wheat, and its current growth state is harvested. Now, we've got weeds growing, obviously, because we just harvested, and it does need ploughing, which means that we need to purchase a plough or a subsoiler in order to get rid of that, to give us that extra, I think it's 15% or something like that on top of your yield bonus. So we come to the shop. Now we've got a few menus that we can use for preparing our field. We've got the plough, which you can get something like this, which is your traditional plough, or you can get something like a chisel plough, which these are modifications on the mod hub. They're available for console and PC, so I'm not showing you something that you can't technically do. Now, what a plough will do is it'll dig deep into the ground and it'll sort of turn the soil over, so you've got fresh soil, more nutrients for your seeds. And they come in all shapes and sizes. You can get this John Deere one. I think this one's available on console too. And then we've got something like the SM82, which is owned by Lizard. That's the biggest plough in the game at the moment. It's 26 meters in width and requires 370 horsepower to pull it. Now, one thing you will have to take note of is the horsepower, because that's how much you're going to need to pull the equipment. So that one requires 510 just for 6 meters as well. It must be a hefty device. In fact, I've never actually looked at that one. But yeah, it just looks like a regular chisel plough. But then again, it sort of rolls it as well. It's got a disc harrow. Well, a few spinning discs, not a disc harrow. But we'll get something sizable for the field, so maybe something like the 6 meter Lizard. This one's available on all consoles. Let's go for a nice John Deere green, because we know we all love John Deere. But there's also these methods as well. There's cultivators, which they don't do a great deal. Now, I've got a modification that sorts all my things by price or by width or what capacity or what have you. So, I mean, looking at the cultivator, they sort of look like a plough. They've got similar chisels at the front, at the bottom, and all they do is they just dig a small surface layer out of the ground, and it just like shuffles it all up and loosens the soil, and then it sort of bubbles all the soil up so it's ready for planting. They're quite handy if you're doing something like wheat or any grain railer. We've got disc harrows, which are self-explanatory. It's got discs that prepare the field. They normally have them sort of slightly angled so it can push the soil in together and sort of moves it around a little bit so you can create a better seed bed. The power harrows are very similar, they're just a bit stronger. And they also have, you can see these little spikes just under here. Bear with me, these spikes here underneath. What they do is they'll continuously move up and down and sort of like poke little holes in the soil, and that just helps freshen up the soil a little bit, and it just gives you a nice texture to your soil as well, especially with the rolling disc at the back, just to even it all out, because it would look a bit shuffly and chaotic. Then you've got the subsoiler, which works as a plough, and you can see that they're very similar to the chisel ploughs, but the blades are a little bit wider, and they do actually go deeper into the ground as well. And this does essentially what the what's it called, the plough does essentially what the plough does, but just a little bit deeper into the ground. And then I think finally we've got the spader, and these act as little shovels that just keep digging around. As you can see, it just keeps flicking it. It spins on this axle here, and it just little shovels that fling the mud around, just again, all the same purpose. And one thing I did miss with cultivators, we've got these ones here. These are just regular cultivators. I think they dig a few centimetres into the ground. And then we've got the shallow cultivators, as it says at the top. The shallow cultivators are used for shallow cultivation or seedbed creation of fields. Now, shallow cultivators, they sort of do the same thing as normal cultivators. It just leaves a little bit of stubble tillage at the front. Weeds will continuously grow for every single one of these. Unless you plow it, then it completely obliterates the weeds' roots. But the best way to tell which is, if you're looking at just off image, the best way to tell which one's shallow and which one's a deep cultivator is just look at the width. The wider, the shallower, because it's got more surface area, so it's going to need a little bit more pressure to push it all the way to the floor to dig deeper than, or just to dig as deep as the normal cultivators. Or you can read the menu and it'll say shallow cultivators. And they do tend to require higher horsepower. I mean, look at these, 500, 500, 500, 450. So yeah, they're quite expensive too. Right, so going back to our plough, it requires a minimum of 180 horsepower to pull it, and it weighs 1.1 tonne. That's something else that you'll have to keep in mind when considering purchasing your own particular tractors for the thing. So you'll probably want to give yourself a little bit of leeway. I'd say around about 200 horsepower would be more than efficient. So we'll just scroll through the tractors, have a look at which one's probably best suited. Maybe this Massey Ferguson. So upgrade its engine so it's got 200 horsepower. Wheel setup, I'll probably just go with wheel weights just to help. Front load we're not really interested in, and these come in handy. The Pro Compact thingamajig, the Izari Pro Compact, it helps with like recognizing your crops and helps with your sensors and stuff like that. So we've got the two here now, but I'm not gonna plough just yet. As we can see over at the field, we've got these little stems just poking out of the ground, and that's called stubble. And the best way we get rid of this is by using what is called a mulcher, which is available in this menu here. And I tend to go for the Katrina because, you know, 150 horsepower to pull, quite wide. It's the widest cultivator. Besides that one's 10 meters, but I don't like that one because it acts more like a roller than a mulcher. So let's get the Katrina. You can't change any of the colours or the specifications, and we've got enough horsepower from the tracks that we've already got. So we don't actually need to do much more. So let's hook this tractor up. Right, so we've got the mulcher lined up and raring to go. So all we're going to need to do for this is just lower it. So it's just going to be left bumper and then B circle, or using keyboard, then I don't know because I never use keyboard. So what we're going to do is we're going to crush all of these stems, and you can see the texture shift. It's sort of going brighter coloured, which is nice because it never used to do that. And it's also mulching the grass as we go around as well. And now we'll see what happens to this strip in comparison to the other. So over here we can still see all the stubble, but over here it's nice and clean shaven, and that's essentially what it is. It's just shaving your field to get rid of all the debris that's on top of it. So let's finish off this job, and this adds, I think it's around about 2% to your yield bonus as well, which is, would be more the better. Right, so for the purpose of this video, I've hired a worker to try and finish the job off for me while we do look for our next bit of kit, which is the plough. So I'm going to need a tractor to pull that. It requires 180 horsepower, which we can probably just, for the sake of this video, obviously it wouldn't be beneficial to keep buying tractors all the time, but let's just spice it up a little bit. Let's go with a different brand other than Massey Ferguson. Now the Landini, I've become quite fond of this tractor recently, and we'll have the Compact Pro obviously. I've become quite fond of this one because it is a really, really nice tractor. I think it's very, very underrated. And with this one, let's just go wheel weights as standard. Now we won't need to have the front weight on the front to balance it out because I think this is light enough to be pulled by this tractor. So let's connect this up, let him, while he's finishing his job. Because I think he's working a bit faster and a bit wider than this plough, so we could probably do it alongside him. Kill two birds with one stone. And now the good thing about this one as well is it does fold, so you can transport it quite easily around the roads. So if you wanted to take it to another field, or if you wanted to be festive, then you can put it at the front like this and your tractor turns into a reindeer. It's fantastic. So let's line this up. And there we go. Now, there's two things that a plough can do. It can either create a field, which, if you look at the menu, so we've got, where does it allow field creation, which is LT, and then +4, which means it'll be left L1 or left bumper, or LB, and it'll be either circle or B, and that will, or it's triangle or Y even, not them two, and that will allow you to start digging out your fields. So I mean, I'm doing this as a tutorial video anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So what we can do is we can press 4, and then as we start driving, you can see it starting to create the field. So we've left a little sliver there. Or we can turn that off by pressing the same button, and then we can start ploughing. Now, what this will do is it digs quite deep into the ground, and let's just go a bit faster. And you can see it's not digging up many stones, it's only digging up medium-sized stones. Sometimes it will dig up big stones, but yeah, it's only doing medium this time, so it's quite good. So I'll tell you what we'll do, we'll let another worker go along with that job, because they're doing a good job. Right, so we've got some more equipment that we do need to look at. So as we said earlier, we've got what is known as field stones. So with these size, they go small, medium or large. Small and medium, we can roll them back into the field, or we can use what is known as a stone picker to collect them. We can either sell them, or we can take them to the lime station and turn it into lime. Just add water. And obviously the lime we can reuse, so it's sort of helpful that way. But I think we will just roll it for the time being, because we do get an extra benefit for rolling. We don't get a benefit for stone picking. But we'll have to see how the plough does in the first instance anyway, because it might dig up some large ones. At the moment it's just looking like medium-sized stones, but they could get bigger as they go into the field. We're uncertain on that just yet. But yeah, as I mentioned earlier, there's these stones, stone pickers even. So the smallest one's 25 grand, so they are a little bit expensive. These 3 are base game ones. And then we've got this one. So I've sort of enhanced the capacity for this one to hold 25,000 litres, just feel like it's easier. But this is the base game, well, the modded version from the original, which is 2,500 litres, which is just a little bit bigger than that one, but a little bit smaller than that one. It's got a wider width, it requires a little more horsepower, I think. Yeah, just 50 horsepower extra. So it's, again, for an extra 12 grand, you can't complain at the width. It's gone from being what, 5.5 to 9.5, so it's nearly doubled its working width, so being every little helps. Or we've got this thing called the roller. Now these two are the base game versions, and then two are quite rubbish to be fair. I don't know why I still got them. But yeah, this one's quite handy because it only requires 160 horsepower, and it is quite long, 12.3 meters. This one requires 350, and it's 24 meters, so it's a bit of a monster, but it's a bit too big for the field that we've got, because field size is important, and buying your equipment to suit that would make the gameplay a lot better for you, because there's no point in going, right, I'll buy the biggest cultivator, I'll buy the biggest tractor, I'll get the quad track, I'll get the big bud, and I'll buy the biggest plough I can find, and I'll buy all this equipment, I'll buy this big seeder, because then you're going to find it hard to manoeuvre around your fields without destroying the fields adjacent to you. And if you own the fields, it's kind of difficult, because the bigger seeders tend to be what they call direct drillers. But let's just go with a different one again. I do like Fent. Fent's a nice tractor. So here we are. So the Fent's going to be our roller. But we're going to have to wait for the plough to finish. So we'll just have to wait for the workers to finish doing what they're doing. And then we're going to plant some canola. Now this is just for the base, so the people that have only just managed to get hold of Farmer Simulator, because I know it's gone onto Xbox Game Pass, or well, Game Pass Ultimate, which is nice. I'm glad to see them doing stuff. So, but a lot of people come into my streams on Twitch and they say, I'm struggling to play this game, can you give me a hand? So I'll either invite them into the game, or I'll do like a quick tutorial live on stream for them, because a lot of the gameplay itself that you do is essentially a tutorial if you word it correctly. So looking at our field now, so we've got some stones, as you can see, they're yellow. It looks like we've got a couple of red ones. Well, that might, no, that's just the little strips where it's not actually ploughed, because you know workers on this game are absolutely useless. But yeah, so we can see that half of this is red, which indicates that it needs ploughing, and then we've got the stones on here, and it's actually missed quite a considerable amount of this field. I'm quite disappointed in this worker. But yeah, so we can see the visuals on here. So as you can see, it says ploughed, and that one's just blank because, you know, it's not ready to harvest. There's nothing growing. It's not a seed bed yet. It has been ploughed on this side, but not on this side. And then there's nothing to indicate that it's withered because, you know, we've harvested and we've not got any foliage. And then the next menu, I think, is just the growth types. Yep, crop types. And there we are. So it was wheat, as you can see here. So if we move wheat, so that's one way. So if you're trying to figure out what's being planted where, and you're struggling with the colour, because there are some that are very, very sort of hard to distinguish, like these two. One of these could be potatoes, one of these could be sorghum, one of these could be oat. So just go oat. So none of them are oat, sorghum. So then to a sorghum, then these two must be, that one must be potatoes. And there we go. So if we don't want a field with potatoes in it, we just click that button. It won't show us any field that I've got potatoes growing. But it can be misleading because these two have nothing growing in them. They might have grass. Let's see. Grass. No, they've not even got grass in them. So yeah. So we can get them two fields, they've got nothing on them. And we can, these have got potatoes. And nobody likes doing potatoes when they first start. It's expensive, tedious, and crap. And also, looking at this plough, you can sort of see it churning the soil up. And you can see all the soil coming from the bottom to the top, so it's sort of flipping all the soil around and creating a lovely layer. But this field does seem to be composed of compost, which is unrealistic in my view. Especially when you've got something like precision farming telling you what type of soil you've got. But, you know, giants can work on it. But yeah, going back to the field, we've still got stones, but at least all of our, what they're called, field notes, I guess. Things that tell us what's good and what's bad about the field. Well, in fact, they only tell us what's bad about the field. But at least they're gone now, so there's no weeds, it doesn't need ploughing. But what we will have to do with precision farming is just apply some nitrogen into this field as well. But we'll roll it first, and we'll discuss the nitrogen, and we'll also discuss the minerals much later into the field preparations. I've chosen this map because this field it's nice and straightforward, and I think a lot of new starters will end up just starting on this map just to get a feel for the game. Because you start off with a lot of equipment, you start off with 3 fields, you've got your sheds, you've got your barn, you've got your silo, your bunker silo, your house, and you start off with all the essentials, which is nice of them to do. And the fields aren't too complicated to work around. Right, well, the worker's indicated that he has completed his job. However, closer inspection, he hasn't. So this is going to sort of mess up the tram lines, and it's going to make sort of precision driving a little bit more difficult, because if you go into first person view, the Landini has called me a liar, but first person at the tip of your header, it sort of tells you where the centre of your tractor is. It sort of works as like a gun's hit marker or an aim sight, and it just allows you to pull your equipment more accurately. But this one doesn't have it. I'm sure the Fent does. I think most Fents do it. Landini, I think, is just more of a fertiliser spreader, and 90% of the time you'd have tram lines already pre-built into your field, because realistically your seeder will turn off the fan every 4 or 5 runs or so, depending on how wide your spreader is. Well, let's just finish off his field preparations. Right, so we're onto the rolling now. So we're just going to lower this roller Now they are nice and wide, but let's have a look. Does this one have it? Yeah, you can just about make out the tip of it. But it's this thing here that's poking out. This will indicate to you whether you're going in a straight line or not. Because as you can see with the tram lines, it's hard to want just to line yourself up with these. As you can see, we're not quite straight enough. So let's line ourselves up. And you can adjust as you go as well, but let's lower the... oh, we already lowered it, never mind. Right, so rolling is quite quick. So as you can see, we've got a few stones behind us, but they're gone now. And you can see that the texture has changed as well. So we can see the narrower tram lines in the field. So this is going to give us a little added bonus that not many people know about, called the seed bed, which is just a preparation bonus because you've made it perfect for the seeds to be planted. So we'll continue to roll all of this. It'll bury all the stones as well. So what stones do is it damages your equipment, but it doesn't affect your yield. So, you know, it's going to affect your money in one case or another. So you might as well just get rid and have it all sorted. So you're not forking out a load of money for every single harvest that you do. Because you know, the more money you can make, or the more money you can save, the better. Because farming's expensive, and this game will soon prove it to you, because to get all the equipment to get the perfect harvest, you're looking at around about £1 million, euros or dollars. But yeah, let's finish off this. Right, and there we have it. So let's go back to the pause menu. Oops, it's saving. I didn't really want to save this game, but I mean, I can use it for future tutorials at least. Right, well, now this is the field that we've been looking at. And as you can see, now there are a little few gaps there, and I think that's just where it's not been mulched, because that is the mulching colour. So it doesn't need rolling, so it doesn't need mulching. There's no more stones on there, and there's no weeds growing, and it doesn't need ploughing, which these two fields do. And then, as you can see, we've got this seedbed thing, so it means that it's been perfectly rolled, and it's ready to have some seeds planted in there. So that's good. So now there's just 2 or 3 more steps we need to take before we can actually start seeding. And that is going to be the distribution of lime. In fact, no, we've only got the one step then, haven't we? We've got to do the lime, then we've got to plant the seeds, and then we've got to fertilise the crops. So we'll have a look at each of them. But let's just get this into the garage, or the shed. Because the shed's normally used for equipment. Well, that's how I use them anyway. Some people like to use them for bale storage, or crop storage is nice as well. But I tend to use silos for that. I can get some nice little cheaty multi-fruit silos that hold a bit of everything. Now excuse the parking, but that was terrible. Right, so let's go back to the shop and let's have a look at lime spreaders. So you can either use, well, we can only use fertilizer spreaders. So these Bredel or Bredel or whatever you want to call them are the best ones for lime spreading if you've not got season pass. So always opt for the bigger one if you can afford it. Make sure you get the extension, and then you get your spreading discs, 6mm spreading disc unit. Just increases the configuration. But what I'm going to use instead is the Kubota version, which you can either purchase the DLC or you can get the year 1 season pass, and you'll get this free of charge with it. So it's 26,000, so you can have new or none, or old. But let's go with the old one. I like the old one better than the new one, actually. The new one looks silly. And then capacity would go for extra large because it holds 10,000 litres this way, and it's got a wider spreading width. And this can be used as a fertiliser or a lime spreader. So it's over here, up by the shop. So we can go ahead and collect this. Now what we're going to need to do is get some lime. And that's purchasable in the shop menu. Shop menu, I didn't actually tell you. You can open it by pressing the menu button on your control pad, your select button on PlayStation, or P on your keyboard. and that opens up your shop. But with me, I've got to beat my horn and press the right paddle. Right, so we're going to go over to this menu, and we're going to have lots of little things. So we can have pallets, big bag pallets, and then there's bales. We're ignoring bales for the time being, and we don't need them for the time being either, because that's only if you need liquid fertilizer. I don't use liquid fertilizer because it's expensive and you use a lot. So we're going to go with the big bags for now. And you've got stones, which we don't need to use. Quick compost, we don't need. Road salt comes in handy during the winter months. Big bags with glue, and now I'm not too sure what that is. It's paper and cardboard for some reason, but you can use actually glue to glue your seeds together and your barley, I think it is. In real life, that is anywhere. But we're going to get some lime. So we've got two options here. So you can get the modded version, which is a liftable big bag, so it caps the mass at 100 kilograms. Or we can get that one, which is just the regular one, and it weighs like 1,000 kilograms or whatever. Or 700, I think it is. I'm actually just looking at that pallet. That looks interesting. 1,500 litre big bag of seeds. That might be worth buying. But yeah, let's just get the regular big bags. Now, they are quite cheap, so we're going to need 10,000 litres of the stuff. So we've got 16,000 litres now. And then we're just going to fill it up by pressing the right trigger. All the good things with big bags is you can actually pick them up. Normally you would use a big bag handler, and you can just pour it in. It comes out the bottom, which is a quite handy tool, but 850 kilograms it weighs. But let's get that poured in. I mean, it does take a while, but it's coming to an end now. Right, so we've filled our trailer. Technically it's a trailer, it's an implement, and we've got 42 meters, but we can alter that to make it more precise. And this is going to alter the pH levels in the field itself, because nitrogen levels will be a bit shocking at the moment. We can see what nitrogen levels are like in there. So environmental score is 37, which is quite bad really. But let's have a look. pH. Oh, wait a minute. We need to get one piece of equipment to test that. And that is going to be under here. And we go to miscellaneous. I've got all kinds of terrible mods, so excuse me. But we're just going to move over to... Is it that one? No, that's pumps and hoses. I should have activated the mods that we need. But this one, it's a nice one. I don't want the range extension one though, because that just does too much space. But there we go. So let's get the Landini to do this. Now what this is going to do is it'll take some soil samples, cost around about $400, pounds, or whatever currency you're using. And it'll take a soil sample to the lab, they'll charge you 400 of whatever currency, and then it'll tell you what your soil's like. And you'll see it on the map as well. So let's take a sample a little more in field. So let's go here. First you need to unfold the tool. Oh yeah. There we go. It's unfolded. So I've got a sample for here. So the brown colour means we've got the sample. And that will tell you about that section. We've got another one for this area, because the soil can change. So that's ready to go to the lab. We'll go to this corner here. I mean, I can't see it changing too much from corner to corner. And I think it holds up to 4 samples. We'll just move it a little bit further in. And there we go. Right, so we've got samples now, so we press, so we send them to the lab, and we'll soon get our results back, and we'll see them come into this menu here. So what have we got? We've got absolutely no nitrogen, I've got a little bit. We've got 20 kilograms per hectare acre in this section, but half of it's so it's still quite shocking. So yield, we're absolutely getting well within the mid range. And then seed rate, we're not too sure on the seed rate yet because we've not planted anything. And a lot of it's silty clay. Don't actually know what that means, but it's very silty. So I'm assuming that all that field is going to be silty clay. So we can lift this up, we can hold it back together again. And it does come in handy because we can go around and do every single field. And then we'll have a look at what happens what happens to that rate once we've actually applied it. So here we are, applying the lime. As I said, it is very wide. It will use a lot as well because we're trying to pump a lot into the ground. Because even though I've got the speed limiter on, it'll still use the same amount as if I didn't have it on. Because it's using a set of amounts per hectare acre, or per acre. But yeah, let's come back once this is all done. Right, so we just used 9,117 litres just on this small patch, so you can just see how bad it is, but look at the flag. We're in the green zone, so the green zone is good. And it didn't actually take too long to actually do it. But let's just, I think we'll just waste the rest of it. Oh, never mind, it's not going to waste everything else. But let's just unload that because we want to put some fertiliser in here now. And get that ready, but let's have a look at what we've done to the field. So, over to the pH again. And as you can tell, it's all green. Little bits that are light green, but that's where we had the darker red bits. But everything else is looking good. So now we've got to get a seeder. So seeders, we can opt for a direct drill, or we can opt for just a regular seeder. Now it doesn't really matter in this instance because we've ploughed. So we can just get a regular seeder if we wanted to. And I do like these because, I mean, they are quite expensive, but they're quite wide, but they don't require a lot of horsepower. Whereas this one, which is just a little bit wider, requires nearly double. So we'd need a very large tractor for that one, or we can use a medium-sized tractor for this one. Or we can be more realistic and get something like this, which it is a direct drill, and it's, I mean, it does require 270 horsepower though. Whereas this one's not a direct drill, which is good. We don't need it. I don't want the seed add-on mod though, because it's not as good as I thought it would have been. Right, so Massey Ferguson can plant the seeds, but we do need to actually buy some seeds. Now we've got two options. We can fertilise as we plant, or we can just do the planting. We can do the planting as a separate entity and then fertilise afterwards. With this one, we're going to have to fertilise afterwards because we don't have the ability to fertilise as we go. It's not got a fertiliser tank. So again, we're going to go back to the big bags. Oh no, we're not going to go to big bags for seeds. I never use big bags for seeds. Just regular pallets will do. I mean, you can use big bags, but I mean, we only need these. So I need about 3,000 litres because that's, I think, the capacity. And that's the capacity that this will hold. I could use big bags, but I mean, we might as well just use the pallets just for the sake of this video. Because big bags do have the perks, but I mean, they just do the same thing as a regular seeder. So we'll fill this and then we'll start the seeding. Right, so we've got 4,200 litres of seed in here, which, you know, it's not as much. Well, it's got a higher capacity than I thought it did. But let's reverse this down here. It's going to begin to turn a bit. And then we need to press Y, well, the left button and Y over to canola. Now, one thing that we do need to, wait for it to save. One thing we do need to look at when we're considering planting is this crop calendar. So orange means it's ready to harvest. And then, where's my mouse gone? The button's playing silly buggers with me again. Right, there we are. So orange means it's ready to harvest or sow, and then planting season is the green ones. So we can only plant oat, sunflower, these three, sugarcane, sugar beets, and potatoes, grapes, olives, poplar, grass, oilseed radish at the beginning of the year. But we move on to some of the better grains, or the better Well, I mean, there's two main grains there that can be planted in September and October. Canola is more like an oily substancey flour that can be planted in August and September. So we're right in the beginning of the planting season for canola. So we can start planting the canola instantly. So we can just make that extra bit of money as we first start. So let's lower the harvester, the seeder, and then we can just start moving forward. And you can see it's removing the lime from the field, but that's okay because we've got its nutritional values into the field. So let's just seed this. And in fact, you know what? I completely forgot to mention this bit as well. I do get asked this question a lot when I'm seeding, when I'm live on stream, and that is, what do the ridge markers do? And I'll show you that now, because the Massey Ferguson is probably a good example. Yes, it's got the little doodah at the front, and it's fairly visible. So we're going to do this ridge marker. We're going to leave them out, and then we'll just start driving forward, nice and straight. And what this is going to do is start leaving like a little ploughing tram line in there. However, it's not doing it with this one. Come on, keep your line. So what we're going to have to do with this is then, the little box marker that we do have, I mean, it would help if it was driving in a straight line. But there we go. I mean, it's as straight as we're going to get, straight as a roundabout. Right, so now we can lift that, and we can move that over to there, but let's leave them both out for now. So what we've got to do now is, if we can get past here, is just line ourselves up evenly to that side here. Now we can plant directly over this, so we've got to lower, and then we can check our rear view mirrors so we can just look at the back, and we want that one to be pointing outwards. And now what we've got to do is just line it up and make sure that that little hip marker is within that tram line, or that ridge marker. And what this will accomplish is a perfect yield, well, perfectly lined seeding job. I couldn't get my words out then. And they have a nice handy feature, so I'm just going to try my best to keep it as good as possible. Now I know that I need to follow this side, but this side is going to be a little bit wonky. I mean, GPS made this obsolete, but not everybody's got a PC, not everybody's got access to GPS, but look at that, absolutely perfect. Did I miss anything? Nothing at all. So we'll lift that up, spin him around again. Now I hate this field because it doesn't seem to appreciate the ridge marker. It's a bit too bulgy on certain sides. But first person again. So it's nice to do this in first person as well. And the ridge markers do make your life a lot easier. So then we can just lower this. Then just keep your eye on the ridge marker. The right one's coming out. Well, it's technically the left one, but it's the right one as well, because we need it on the left hand side, so that's the correct one. That's coming out, not the right one. Right, so now we can just follow this again, and we can continue seeding this way. So if you ever want to say to somebody, this is what this does, you know, there's your little bit of information. And another thing that I did forget to mention to everybody as well is, if you look at the top corner, with precision farming, you get what is called a variable seed rate. Now, this automatically detects how many seeds you're going to pump into the ground. Or most farmers would have to do this by hand, looking at the monitors in the dashboard or in the cab. So at the moment we're running on medium, so we're doing 52 seeds per meter squared. And then when it gets to high, it can go anywhere between like 200 to 400. It just depends on your seeder. But I mean, I can't see anything too bad with this. It's actually putting a lot less seeds in than I thought. I thought it was going to be high all across the board. I've gone on a few maps that have started off like that, and it's been absolutely taxing on your what's it called, your seed usage, your seed consumption. But we're just about to finish this seeding off, so let's just skip forward. Right, so that's the seeding all done now. Now what we're going to need is to fertilise our ground. Now the best way to get fertiliser, obviously, now you can actually generate this through factories, but you need like digestate and you need all kinds of rubbish. But we're going to use just the regular big bags of fertiliser. So we're going to go 8,000 litres should be more than enough. And then we're just going to head over to this tractor. Now I know what you're thinking, how are you going to differentiate between the fertiliser and the lime? For storage purposes, they do have a logo on them. So the lime has a picture of white dusty rocks, whereas the fertiliser has a picture of the logo of the company that manufactures it. So here we have corn cali, it's got the bull, and lime, a white dusty rock, calcium carbonate. But yeah, let's fill up this, and then we can start fertilising the ground. Now, one thing that you might have noticed is that it says nitrogen mineral fertiliser application, rather than the, whatever it's called, the pH value. So what this is going to do is it's just going to pump the ground with its vital nutrients, and it's going to make sure that the crops are going to grow nice and healthily. They're trying to sort of outlaw this in the UK though, because they say, well, pumping it full of all these chemicals is just damaging to the ground. I don't think they're outlawing fertiliser, but it's like a lot of pesticides that they don't want to use anymore, herbicides they don't want to use anymore. If you want a weed, you use a hoe, or a weeder, and it increases your agricultural, environmental doodah. Right, so we're full now. As you can see, it's closed his doors for this cover. And we just gotta apply this now. And we'll see a really, really good harvest rate on this when we get ready to harvest. But onwards we go. As you can see, it's moving everything around. It's looking good, it's looking sharp, it's looking bright. So it's gone. So the one at the bottom is what it was before we started doing this. And then that's the range that we're going to now. The finished marker is what we're going to look like. So it means we're heading in the right direction. And we are successfully feeding the minerals. Now it's quite quick to do this. Normally you do it at 4 miles an hour or 6 miles an hour. Today we're doing it at 32 miles per hour. But yeah, now you can see we're analysing the field. We're quite high up there, up towards the green zone. Next year we'll get even better to the darker green zone, because we're going to continually keep on top of our feed to the field. So the only job we've got to do now is just wait for harvest season. So let's have a look at the field. Everything's in green. 7,000 out of 7,000 is perfect. Nitrogen levels 160 out of 160, absolutely perfect. Expected yield 89%. Yield potential 89%, 6.3 to 6.2 is quite decent for canola, to be fair. But we haven't done one thing, and that is we need to roll the ground again. That's all we've got left to do. So I know we've rolled it once and we've created that seed bed, but we just need to roll it one more time, just so we get that extra little bit of cash on top, well, that extra little bit of yield to produce more goods, because at the end of the day it's about feeding people. That's all farming's about. We've got to feed people. Now, you're not going to feed them canola, however people can cook a lot of stuff in canola oil. But yeah, we'll seed again, and then we'll roll again, and let's see how it gets us. Right, so we're just about finishing the seeding job. Now, don't ask me why, but we have to seed it a second time. Roll it a second time. I think the only explanation that I can give is that it just pushes the seeds further into the ground, I guess. I'm not too sure. But there we go, 65 to 100% is our yield expectation. So once the crops grow, I mean, they're going to grow in a pre-fertilised condition anyway, so that's good. But we're just going to now skip forward a year. In fact, no, we'll skip forward a month, and then I'll show you just exactly what our field looks like. So this is now our canola field. It's in its first growth stage, so it's just a little, it's gone from being a seedling to being a little plant. That's what our canola looks like now. The soil is salty clay, so we're not looking at a great yield bonus, I guess, but I'm hoping that there comes a time where we can improve the soil condition. But yeah, we're looking at 89% of our expected yield, and what's that then? That menu changed a bit then. I don't know. And then obviously we've got our expected yield is 65 to 100% yield potential. So that's good. So let's skip forward to harvest season. Right, so we can see now that our potential harvest quantity is 11,000 litres. That's our potential. So it could be less, could be more. It will change as we go along. It can go up or down, because not all the grass, or not all the ground is perfectly even. So let's fire up the harvester and let's get this ground cooking. We are, for the sake of this video, using the Unrealistic Titan, which is a lizard product, and we'll have a look at just how much our thing has improved. As you can see, it's quite dark in colour, but we can see some lighter patches now. So next year our yield will be so much better than what we're producing now. Right, so with the harvest completed, and we currently stand at 12,215 litres, so it means that our potential harvest was actually a lot lower than what we actually got, which is strange because potential is something you aspire to get. And we've exceeded potential. Like the Ronaldo of farmers, aren't we? Well, not current Ronaldo, current Ronaldo's kind of pissy. But let's just push this straight into the trailer. I like this little bunker where it is because it just means we've got that perfect stretch. And that is precision farming and field work in a nutshell. I'm stuck in the wall. I can't get out. So, and then you can see, again, we're stuck with what we had earlier. We've got the stubble. So again, it's just do the same process over and over again, and that is how you do arable farming. If you've not got precision farming, or you don't want precision farming because you find it too confusing, then, I mean, if the only difference that you do have to adjust to is once you've planted the seed, you've got to fertilise it again. So you've got to do 2 layers of fertilisation rather than just a singular. And that's the only difference. But yeah, we've got a good yield. Now the weeds are growing again. But we can soon take care of them. Now, if you choose cultivate, then you will have to buy some herbicide, which you can only purchase in regular pallets. And when it loads, there we are. I don't know what's going on with the engine, but it's a bit slow recently. Yeah, you can get herbicide in these pallets. And I don't have a clue what that's for. But yeah, get 2,000 litres of herbicide for $2,400, pounds, euros. And then they've got to be put into the spreaders, which are these things here. Base game ones are perfectly fine. I do like the Kubota. However, I do enjoy using these ones as well. I like the John Deere self-propelled. That's really, really good. But yeah, that's everything in a nutshell for you. You're looking at around about maybe about $1 million to get all the essential equipment. If you will need a stone picker at some point because you will dig up some big hefty stones. But yeah, that's everything that you need to know about Farming Simulator, especially with arable farming. We'll start looking at grass care, what we can do with grass, how we can feed our animals, etc., etc. in a future video. We'll look at potatoes, we'll look at foraging, and we'll be doing all kinds of stuff. So thank you very much for watching, like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.